are very, very specific. They are saying, take the cause of the victim. Prima facie, the victim is the one who has suffered. Therefore, you have to ensure that the victim's interests are protected. So that being the state of affairs, instead of taking note of the fact the victim has gone through this harrowing experience, the police goes on to say that we will slap a case of an assault. Why are they doing it? Well, they are doing it largely because of the fact that these are being perhaps perceived by the men in khaki as nuisance cases, cases where they will have to move very fast, and the police is perhaps not willing to do that. Why would you not be willing to do it? Because it involves enormous amount of effort to be put in. You will have to get the assistance of not just the police force but also of your informers. Try to figure out where exactly this particular crime happened, what time the crime happened, who was the accused, whether the accused was known to the victim, so on and so forth. So it takes an enormous amount of time and effort on the part of the policemen, and that is perhaps the reason why they are trying to deflect attention by saying that we will file an FIR, we will book a case and put it on these particular terms and conditions. That is a case of assault, perhaps case of attempted rape, etc. But trying to dilute the case per se. Remember, as I said a little bit earlier, 6 people had committed this atrocity. Only now 5 people have been arrested, perhaps because of the kind of renewed media focus. There was a comment made by a very high-ranking politico in the state, is rape the only news that you cover? But unfortunately enough, unless and until media takes it up on itself and decides to expose these cases, it appears that the men in khaki do not want to be goaded into action. Ministers will issue guidelines, ministers will issue directives, but nothing seems to be happening. Take the case, let me go back to that particular case, that case of an attempted rape on a divorcee woman. The public caught hold of the wannabe accused and they thrashed him in open daylight. The public decided to take law into their hands. It is debatable at this point of time whether what the public did was the right thing or the wrong thing. But the very fact is, ordinary people like you and me, are extremely sick and tired of this kind of news that comes in and day out. Raising the question, is rape the only thing for which Karnataka is going to get famous for? So that being the state of affairs, when the public at large is extremely sick, they are sick to the core. They don't want these kind of deviant elements in society. That is the reason why they decide to take law into their own hands. Why are they doing it? Because of probably inaction from the men in khaki. And what do the men in khaki do? They try to dilute the charges by saying, look, this may be a case of an assault, this may not be a case of rape. Why do they do that? Because there is enormous amount of pressure perhaps on the men in khaki to solve these cases, and they are unable to come to grips. Remember, a series of guidelines have been issued, but despite that, if the men in khaki are going to say that we are only going to slap these provisions and not put a case of rape, they are trying to in effect dilute the case, which means they can deflect it. They can perhaps treat it on lines with something like a petty theft, or perhaps robbery, or chain snatching, something which does not really require much of strenuous effort on the part of the men in khaki. And that is perhaps a very, very glaring and a very, very bad precedent that perhaps is getting set in the state, because this seems to be giving virtually a visa and passport for the rapist or the people who harbor these kind of intentions to go ahead and commit these kind of crimes. They have no kind of impunity. The police are watching, but despite that, if they go ahead and commit these crimes, it shows perhaps they know that the law is on their side. It is extremely weak and they can simply get away, Akshita.
Right, Arun. Thank you so much for joining us with all those details. In fact, it looks like the police are hesitating simply because they believe it will be an extra amount of work for them now that Umar Shri has intervened, now that the media has gone ahead and given attention to this particular story. Action is slowly being taken. Well, parents from the Vibgyor High along with the Lok Satta Party members have gathered today at the town hall. They will be taking out a peace march to protest against the 6-year-old rape that shook the city. It is going to be a largely peaceful protest of sorts. They have gathered in town hall, and in some time from now they will start a march of sorts demanding justice. My colleague Deepak joins us live from town hall. Deepak, over to you. We understand the parents from Vibgyor High themselves are out there. They're planning to take out a march, is what we understand.
Akshita, as of now, there are parents here. They're not exactly claiming that they're from Vibgyor. There are parents from the city. They don't want this just to be the parents from Vibgyor who are here. So it's parents, it's people from the National Women's Front. There are people from the Lok Satta Party. There are other common men who are here just in protest of the incidents which have been taking place in the city. Now they're here because they want the government to be proactive now to exactly find out what their agenda is. Let's speak to some of them. Now here they're holding a big banner. If you could notice, it says, yes, this is the only issue. Now so sending out a strong message to the government. Let's exactly find out what that means.
Yeah, there's been a lot of irresponsible comments from politicians about whether it is the way women dress or why the spotlight should be on this and only this, or how this is inevitable and these things happen and they're surprised it doesn't happen even more. So our assertion is that so long as rapes happen, yes, this is the only issue. You fix this first. When the country is not safe for 50% of the population, there are no other issues to worry about. So yes, this is a clear message to the government of Karnataka that this is the only issue.
Right, now you listed off 4 points there. Could you explain what that is exactly?
Sure. So it's very common in more developed countries to have a list of sexual offenders available at police stations in every locality. So that be it public, if I'm renting an apartment, I can go to the local police station and find out a list of sexual offenders and see, does this apartment complex house any sexual offender? If I'm running a school in the locality, I can go get the same list from the police station on demand and check to see if any of my staff are on that list. Or before I hire people, I can make sure that they are not on the list. So this should be made mandatory. One of the things that the government is doing and getting away with in Karnataka is that they issue guidelines. The time is long past for guidelines, right? Rapes are happening every day. They need to clamp down with an iron fist. So this cannot be guidelines. There should be a mandatory list that must be available at every police station. Second is that many of the rape arrests are recorded under a category where the offenders, the potential perpetrators can walk out on bail. Even today, in the school case, right, there are potential perpetrators who have aided and abetted who are walking free today, right, while the victim and the people concerned with the victim are sitting at home in fear with their lives damaged or lost or seriously affected. So why is this the case? This makes no sense. We already have a law, the POCSO, for minors, prevention of sexual children's sexual offences, right, where if the perpetrators are booked under that case, they cannot walk out free with bail. So we are asking for all rape arrests, including aiding and abetting of rape, to be made non-bailable. The third thing is, every rape complaint must be an FIR. Many times, when the victim goes to the police station, they are persuaded not to even file a complaint. The ratio of women police stations in Karnataka is pathetic. So most victims, women don't want to talk to a male police officer and file a complaint. Or if the police officer is not being very conducive in taking the complaint, it dissuades them from filing the complaint. So every rape complaint must be an FIR. This way we know how many are actually happening and how many are actually being convicted. The rate of rape convictions in India has come down from 40% a few years ago to 25% today. Why is that? This is shocking, right? And lastly, the most shocking of all, the victims don't have a right to choose their own lawyer. They get assigned a public prosecutor, right? I might have the means, I want to get the best criminal lawyer. And indeed, after Nirbhaya, there's a 1,000 crore fund set up in India, by which even victims without the means can draw money from the fund to get the best lawyer to represent them. But the law doesn't allow them to pick a lawyer. They are stuck being assigned with the public prosecutor of the government's choice, right? At most, a private lawyer can sit and assist the case, cannot be the primary lawyer arguing the case. The victim should not have any less rights than the offender. That makes no sense at all. So these are specifically the 4 demands. We believe these are low-hanging fruit. This is not like awareness creation, changing the legislation, things that require years and social change to happen. This can be done by government of Karnataka today. We challenge them to do it. Lok Satta party challenges them to do it.
There you go, Akshata. So these are interesting 4 demands. Now they want the government to pay heed to this. They want the government to consider this. Now there are people from the women's front as well. Let's talk to them now. You're all joining in along with the others protesting here. So what's your agenda primarily?
Our agenda is also the same thing as theirs. Since earlier we had issues just concerning women, but nowadays our condition is so terrible. The plight of our Bangalore city is so terrible that our children also have been targeted. You know, they are not even safe when they have to go out to the play area to even play. We don't know that they're going to come back safely nowadays. We have to keep the kids so secured in the houses itself. We have to housebound them. We don't have to allow them to go out because such is the plight of our city today. And that's what we want the government to take stringent action against all this, because they can definitely change all of this. They can take a stand and they can make the law even more stringent and make it a safe city for all the citizens to live peacefully.